Well, the president has declared that he's jumpstarting the American dream. Today, he's been launching Trump Account, which aims to build long-term financial security for millions of children by creating tax-advantaged investment accounts. Here is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent explaining how this is going to help children get a kickstart on their finances.
The compound growth from Treasury's initial seed funding alone stands to make young Americans wealthy. Assuming historical growth rates continue, a single $1,000 deposit into a Trump account at birth should grow to an estimated amount of at least $500,000 by the age of retirement. The $1,000 seed from Treasury is exclusive to newborns. But keep in mind that any American below the age of 18 is also eligible to receive a tax-advantaged Trump account to begin saving for the future. Philanthropists, family, friends, employers, and states.
Brendan, what are your thoughts on this initiative?
I actually really like it. I think that we used to talk in this country about an ownership society and about getting more people to be able to invest in their future, invest in the market. I think it was Albert Einstein that called compound interest the most powerful force in the universe. And there's something to that. So I think it's a good policy. I think we need to continue to do things like cut taxes. We need to get spending under control. And then again, one thing we alluded to earlier was how great the economic growth has been, and those are some extremely good numbers, historic numbers, really, in terms of GDP. But I do want to get ahead of some other potential problems. I work on AI policy, for example, and the AI revolution is coming. So I'd love to see the president get with Congress and work on ways to make sure that we avoid things like massive layoffs or unemployment due to that revolution that's coming soon. But I think if anybody can do it, this president can. I think
Yeah.
he and his team understand the economy just about better than any administration we've had in the last 100 years.
Well, activist and rapper Nicki Minaj made a surprise appearance at the US Treasury's Trump Account Summit, declaring that she is actually the president's #1 fan and the anti-Trump groups only make her more MAGA. Listen to this.
Well, I don't know what to say, but I will say that um, I am probably the president's #1 fan. And that's not going to change. And the hate or what people have to say, it does not affect me at all. It actually motivates me to support him more. And it's going to motivate all of us to support him more. We're not going to let them get away with bullying him and, the smear campaigns. It's not going to work, okay? He has a lot of force behind him, and God is protecting him. Amen. Okay.
Alex, it's interesting listening to that point there. Obviously, she claims she's Trump's #1 fan. I think a lot of people would be fighting for that title. But I think she makes a good point that the more kind of anti-Trump hate that is out there, that is targeting Donald Trump, I think it only boosts his support. I know we were speaking about the polling numbers earlier in the show, and it's not probably exactly where he would like them to be. But I think Nicki Minaj makes an interesting and probably true point there.
I think she does. His numbers are going up certainly since November. That was a low. The government shutdown was a pretty negative time for his numbers, for Republicans' numbers. They've been rebounding since then and have continued to. Um, she also reminds me of a finding that we had back in January in our public release that most people, like 80% of people, 83% of people, I believe, think that they encounter misinformation on a daily basis.
Mm.
That's probably a reasonable figure. I think that I do, certainly. And so when I hear her say that no matter all the hate that comes in, I'm still his biggest fan, that tells me that she's turning off what she's hearing and that there are limits to how much the negative news can break through to her because people simply don't believe what they're hearing. That's likely a good and healthy response, but it is a product of an environment that is just rife with, if not misinformation, just throwing bombs and telling only one side of a story without ever giving any context or telling another side.
Brendan, Trump also told reporters this week that Cuba will be falling pretty soon, or be failing pretty soon, saying that the island's economy is collapsing, and now that Venezuela has stopped spending oil and money. Let's listen.
Well, we're going to see what happens with Cuba. I don't know, anybody interested in Cuba in this room? Not too many people. This is not a Cuba room, but that's all right. There are plenty of them around, especially in Miami. And Cuba will be failing pretty soon. Cuba is really a nation that's very close to failing.
Brendan, can I get your reaction?
Yeah, it makes me wonder if the president is foreshadowing some pressure that he and the administration are going to put on Cuba. Obviously, with the seizure of Maduro in Venezuela and the ability to cut off the oil there, that has put pressure on Cuba and on that regime. We know that Secretary of State Marco Rubio has a personal interest and a longstanding national security interest in reducing the influence of Cuba in the Western Hemisphere. The Cuban people have suffered under the regime for now 60 plus years under communism and socialism. And so I'm really hopeful that we can see some changes there in the country for the Cuban people, because they're a great nation, and I'd love to see this administration help make Cuba great again.
Alex, do you agree? Is Trump potentially foreshadowing something there?
It's possible. I think the Cuban regime has been teetering for a while. If it is a relatively inexpensive endeavor for the United States, then people will basically support it. We saw that people basically supported the actions in Venezuela. People basically supported the actions in Iran, a lot more so when it seemed like they had no cost to them. And so if that is what some kind of an action turns out to look like in Cuba, great. People are on board with that. If it's more costly than that, if there is a collapse of a system and people are getting violent and you see unrest, people don't like that. Americans don't like that. It brings back memories of the war on terror and unsuccessful attempts at nation building. I don't particularly see that in the in the cards for Cuba. And so if that's not what happens, then Trump will continue to be the luckiest president of my lifetime. And that doesn't seem terribly unlikely.
Signal principal and pollster Alex Tarasio and CEO of the Alliance for Secure AI and political strategist Brendan Steinhauser. Thank you both so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.